I don't know any other model than the global partnership. That's who I work with. USAID does kind of work through the global partnership, even though Education for All has not been passed. That's still kind of how they target their monies. So I would say their model is kind of a two-part one. Access to education, which they've been, the real victory throughout all of the work that's being done globally, particularly in developing countries, is access. Kids now have free access. If you go to Eastern Kenya, where they will tell you for years, many kids came to school kind of episodically. Kids are now going to school. Classrooms are full. You know, in fact, they're probably too full. You know, they're bursting at the seams. They now have access. The question is access to what? How high quality is the education? And that's the second part, I think, of the global partnership is getting higher quality teaching, and that's, I think, the hard part, because as an organization that calls itself results, right? There is a science to teaching. That there's an art to teaching, but there's also a science to teaching. We know what the secret sauce is to teaching early literacy. There's not a question about it. We know exactly everything you need, with few exceptions. There's very little to work out there. Similarly, in early numeracy, we know all of the pieces of that. There's been a lot of investment and research in these areas. The question is how do we get people to do it?
And I agree with Congressman Poe. If we're going to put millions and millions of dollars in there ought to be some results, and they ought to be documented so we can show them to them. Mm-hmm. So can you give me the results so I can give them to Congressman Poe so he will support the Global Partnership for Education? Because unless I do, he will not.
Right, right. So I'd love to meet with him. One of the problems for members of Congress is that they want simple answers. Answers that are easy to explain to their constituents. Education is not simple. It is not. So if you want data that shows more kids are getting into school, yes, we can show them that. If you want data that shows more kids are learning to read, yes, we can show them that. More kids are learning to read, absolutely. Is it a result of USAID? Probably not only because of USAID. But would it be as powerful without it? Absolutely not. And I think that the question I would ask the congressman is what I didn't talk about at the beginning is, why would we care if kids in Liberia learn to read? Why do we care? Not rhetorical. Well, why do we care?
National security.
National security, right? Because if you don't educate children in these communities, then they become potential terrorist sort of hotbeds. What else? I'm sorry?
Morale.
There's a moral issue, right? This is sort of a moral humanity issue. The mayor of Dallas, J. Eric Johnson, in the 1960s said, living is really about caring. Do we care enough to do something about it? So that's another piece. What else? What's another reason?
Local reality.
That's right. These are global economies. That's right. The Collier book, give him a copy of the Collier book. Collier will tell you, if this billion lowest income people if we don't change that calculus, it drags the global economy down, right? Because we don't benefit from a billion people who need to then be fed, it's sort of like having to take care of a whole billion group of neighbors who can't help themselves. So the idea is to help themselves. So I would want to know, do you care about that? That's what I would ask him. Is that important to you? And then, is it important to you enough that we should invest in national security? And
right, but he would very much like to see the number of kids going to school is this, and that their education is improved to this. And yes, he would like to see those big.
That global partnership in education has data on every country that shows the increase in kids going to school, the increase of girls going to school. I mean, the remarkable thing is, in many of these developing countries, there's such gender disparity, right? Girls don't go to school. They are wed and they get pregnant as young teens. So that gender parity issue is a very important metric. There are it's all there. Are we being realistic? The cool thing about the global partnership is it's not just the United States. It would be unrealistic if we thought we were going to do it all. Yeah. But it's about kind of a community, right, of partners who are saying it's our responsibility. We should be looking at metrics. Are we making a difference? Because that, by the way, is the history of development, is there have been no metrics. No one really, it was all about doing something that felt good, not something that worked. And so having metrics, having a community that's working on it, and having the knowledge of what needs to be done. So in Liberia, this is a country that used to produce chocolate. Lots of chocolate, right? The Ivory Coast, Cote d'Ivoire, right next door, produces tons and tons of chocolate. Liberia has exactly the same environment, no chocolate being grown anywhere. So there's opportunity. They've got opportunity for building produce, for getting it out. They've got one of the largest seaports on the western hemisphere of Africa, western side of Africa. So there's a lot of opportunity. We just need to educate the population so that they can take advantage of those. I think it is realistic. Will we eradicate all poverty? Probably not. Not in our lifetime, but we can certainly educate people so that they can begin to bootstrap themselves. Last question, and then I want to stop.
I was wondering if we convince our members of Congress to sign on to this Education for All bill, what will that make happen for the global partnership for education?
I think it's kind of related to David's question. If we can get them to sign on to the Education for All bill, it will redirect the use of things like USAID dollars to support the Global Partnership for Education. We as a country, as a government, don't like to play well with other countries. I mean, that's essentially what we're trying to tell our Congress people, right? Is that we want you to sign on to a much larger effort and stop using our dollars for things that are perhaps politically expedient, but aren't contributing to the greater solution of eradicating poverty through education and healthcare. So that's really what we're trying to convince them to do. And it's a tough sell, don't get me wrong. It doesn't matter which president, which party you're talking about. They want to use those monies to leverage other things. But, it's supposed to be the hearts and minds of other places. And much of USAID money for the past 10 or 12 years has gone to building the embassy in Iraq and working in Afghanistan. So now we're pulling ourselves out of those countries. It's a perfect time to redirect our efforts. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.